Hello everybody, Infinite Shinjo here, and welcome to another video where I talk about an anime that I watched from the spring 2019 series. Although it's more technical to say that I watched it from winter, because today I am going to be talking about Rising of the Shield Hero. It came out during the winter 2019 series and then was slated for, I don't know if it was initially slated for 12-13 episodes, but it got greenlit for 25 episodes and it just finished, so I'm going to give my thoughts on the series as a whole. So, like all of these videos, I'll start by talking about what the show's about. Basically, it starts off like any ordinary isekai show. Main character gets sent to another world and has to save it. But this time they have a little bit of a twist. First of all, there are the 4 cardinal heroes, each proficient in one weapon. One of them has a spear, one of them has a bow, one of them has a post-credit Shinjo. Let me know what the third hero has. But our main character, Naofumi Iwatani, has a shield. And obviously, whatever the other heroes have is more better for battle, where Naofumi's is more reliant on defense. But after something that might get into a little bit with characters, he basically gets castrated from the whole place, and he basically turns rogue. But at the same time, he has to find ways to get along with the other heroes to stop these waves from coming in. So basically, like the show says, it's about him going from the bottom and rising up, which is reflected in the first opening. But I think that's a pretty brief synopsis of the show, so let's get into the characters. First up is Naofumi Iwatani, the wielder of the shield, who, like I mentioned, isn't really suited for combat, so he basically has to find a workaround in order to rise up in the world, especially after the cruel fate that he was dealt. And I guess I should get this out of the way now, since I've already mentioned it a couple of times. Basically, what happened with him, spoilers if you haven't seen the show, although, to be fair, who hasn't seen the show at this point? Basically, nobody wants to join his party because he has a shield. Nobody can really rely on him because he's just all about defense, not about offense. But one girl, Malti, or Mine, whichever one you want to prefer to call her, there is a third option, but I'm not going to go into that. She decides to join his party, and he's thinking, oh, this is actually pretty nice. But then the following day, she's literally up in the courtroom and saying something like, he tried to do indecent things to me, yada yada yada. Meanwhile, he knows, Naofumi knows, and we know that nothing like that happened. And basically, he gets thrown to the wayside because everybody thinks that he's some sort of masochistic pig or something like that. And she comes out on top, gets a lot of his money, I think it was. And basically, that turns her into an enemy in his eyes, and to all the viewers' eyes. And then from there, every interaction with somebody with a shield hero, most of the time it just boils down to, there's that evil devil shield hero again. But before I go over the last couple of episodes of the show, I'll finish up the characters. The first official team member that he gets is Raphtalia, who is essentially a demi-human and a slave. Because in this world, there are people that are half human, half animal. In Raphtalia's case, a raccoon, sort of tanuki sort of thing. And basically, he treats her like, well, you would expect somebody to treat a slave, I guess. But at the same time, I'm not sure if you would really call it this, but the best way I can explain it is kind of like a Stockholm Syndrome sort of thing, where she basically falls in love with her captor, which, if you think about it from that perspective, it kind of makes things kind of weird. But at the same time, it's not, it just grows into a sort of father-daughter sort of relationship. And even on multiple occasions, Raphtalia has mentioned when you're the shield, I'll be the sword. And she trains to better herself to protect Naofumi in battle, which is very admirable. Where at the same time, even though I mentioned that she has sort of feelings for him or something like that, it's not really to the degree that they did it with Pokemon XY and XY and Z, where that's a majority of Serena's driving force for literally doing anything. At the same time, Raphtalia has her own backstory, she has her own development, she has more stuff that sets her apart besides, oh, you like Naofumi, that's your entire character. And especially in the dub, she is voiced by Erica Mendez, which is a definite plus because a lot of characters that Mendez has voiced I really enjoy. But that's really all that I can mention about Raphtalia without mentioning specifics in her backstory. And at that point, I'm not going to do that for fear of spoilers, and I feel like it'd be better to just watch and take it in on your own. So the third character that ends up being part of Naofumi's team is Philo. And for the first maybe 10 episodes, I can't remember when she made her debut, but I was just watching the opening and I saw her transform into a giant chicken, and I'm thinking, what in the heck is going on here? I want to know more about this character, because the fact that she transforms into a giant chicken is ridiculous enough that it might make me like her as a character. And I've kind of made it known that the show kind of was weird after she was introduced, because literally the episode later was Philo and Raphtalia trying to steal some sort of jewel egg sort of thing, because Raphtalia is jealous that Philo is basically becoming close with Naofumi, and at the same time she has feelings for Naofumi, so there ends up being some sort of like sister conflict or something like that, and the whole episode was just them trying to get this thing, and then at the end of it they end up being closer. Now, I understand that was just to build up their relationship, but it's kind of weird because after episodes like the heartwarming moment where Motoyasu is facing off against Naofumi and Raphtalia steps in and all that stuff in the early episodes, and Raphtalia's Japanese voice actress sings the ending song, after huge moments like that, we go to just an episode that could be a slice of life anime. I don't know, at the same time, I wouldn't really pin that on Philo's character as a whole, though the tone did shift when she was introduced. It would, because Philo's a younger character. They have to have plots that would involve her in some way. And at the same time, she did kind of grow on me and grow as a character, because she even made a friend with, oh, what's her name? Not Melty. No wait, is it Melty? I think it is Melty. Yeah, she made friends with Melty, and that's just super cool, because it's just like, for a character like Philo that would be, I don't know, 10 years of age, let's just say, it's cool that she finds somebody that's around her age to be friends with. And at the same time, it's not really like ordinary isekai where it's just like, oh, main character is overpowered, main character gets all the screen time, all of his team members get nothing. Because Raphtalia and Philo both get their own development arcs in the span of 25 episodes. Philo basically is confirmed to be the next Philolio Queen, or however you pronounce it. And Raphtalia and her home village and all that stuff, like I said, that's more impactful to watch it on your own. But I don't know, at the same time, out of these three characters, it's hard for me to say, I like this one the best because of this reason. Because each character has something that I appreciate. I like Naofumi because he basically comes from nothing to being a true hero. Raphtalia is dedicated to protecting Naofumi with everything that she has. And Philo is just a bubble of great energy, and she's just adorable. So since I went over the characters, those are essentially all the real characters that I need to mention. There are a couple of other ones like the royal family and stuff like that, but I feel like it doesn't really need to be mentioned here. Even though it is a big part of the story, I'll get into it with the whole rest of the video. But let me just go over a couple of things that basically pop into my head, whether they're on the note that I wrote or whatever. First thing, the music. Both openings are absolute bangers. I think even in the last video I mentioned about Faith being one of my favorite openings. I literally have every rendition that I could find on YouTube available for me to play at any moment. I'm honestly probably just going to use it as background music if I can find an instrumental track to it. Ending songs are okay as well, but just for me, there aren't many times that I would say I prefer an ending song to an opening song. But that's just me personally. And as well, I believe Kevin Penkin did a lot of the music for this show. He also did the soundtrack for Made in Abyss as well, and maybe a couple of other shows that I can't think of. It really shows because a lot of the music has that sort of medieval-ish kind of vibe. It's really cool. But as far as the show itself, it's okay. I wouldn't say it would be something that I would gladly watch over a second time. Not to say it isn't that great, but there are some moments that are just like making me question why. Like one thing that I didn't even think about until I was writing out some notes. At the start of the show, when Naofumi meets up with Raphtalia, she's basically a kid. But she grows to be an adult when the first 10 episodes maybe. But then after that, she basically plateaus. She doesn't get any older. And see, in my mind, it would be just like, oh, Raphtalia ages more than Naofumi, that makes sense. But then when she stays the same age, it just makes me think, so why did they do that? Is it just for fan service, or is there an actual in-canon reason? My only other thing I can figure is if she's food deprived for the longest time, then when she finally gets food, then that helps her age? I'm not sure. Because if the logic is she ages faster than humans, why isn't she aging faster than Naofumi? Because after she ages up, she just kind of plateaus. I don't know. It doesn't really hinder my enjoyment of the show, but it's just something that I've noticed. The animation is really cool, especially in the second opening. They really put much more emphasis on the animation, and it's very, very cool. Even in major battles, the animation is very interesting and very neat. And the biggest thing, they introduced this conflict with Naofumi and the whole Melromark family, and they conclude it within the 25 episodes, and they don't really drag it on more than they need to. Although, to be fair, he does still have some apprehensiveness about teaming up with the other Cardinal Heroes, but to be fair, I can understand why. They're a bunch of incompetent fools, but at least they conclude that little arc for Naofumi and don't dwell on it too much and still keep Naofumi true to his character. But outside of that, the other reason that I would say I wouldn't go over and watch it a second time is because the first half is kind of a drag to get through. Not that it's terrible, but it's more or less just setting up everything for the big climax at the end and all the stuff that happens. That's kind of a pain to get through the first half of it because it's a little bit slow for me, but the second half makes up for it. I especially like how they handled Raphtalia's and Philo's arcs, and even the end of Naofumi's arc to an extent. Although with Naofumi being the main character, he's going to have a lot more development coming, but I do like how they gave each character a starting point and made them different by the end of the first season. Now, I don't know if it's confirmed to make a second season. I wouldn't be surprised if it is, but at this moment, I don't know if there is. But if there is, I hope Mad Kid delivers another great opening. But at the end of the day, I will include one more little thing. Even with all the stuff that I said about questioning why Raphtalia doesn't age up after the first 10 episodes, with the first half being a kind of slog to get through, even with all that, I'd be lying if I didn't enjoy it. Because at the same time, the show, I will admit, is kind of slow to get through, especially since every episode is just, oh, Naofumi goes to another place, oh, something else that the heroes did wrong, some other misunderstanding going on. I would be lying if I wouldn't enjoy it at least. Because at the end of the day, you can still like something even if it's not really technically the best, or even if it's something that's technically good. Because I watched a lot of stuff now and even back in the day that wouldn't be considered masterpieces, and everybody's definition of a masterpiece is totally different. But at the end of the day, it was a fine show. It was a good show. I would say above average. But the first half just kind of a little bit slow to get through for me. If I had to give it a score, I would say it's right above Senryu Girl for me. While that show doesn't really have an overarching plot, this one has a very interesting plot and it really delivers with a lot of the later episodes. So I would give it a little bit above, 8.5 out of 10 maybe. Not that these rankings even actually matter for anything, but just to give you my thoughts on how I enjoyed the show. But that is going to do it for this video, and I hope that you enjoyed. I hope a lot of my opinions about Shield Hero didn't really hurt you that much or make you feel like I'm any lesser of a person. And if it did, then that's okay. I got my opinion, you have your opinion. That's okay at the end of the day. If you enjoyed, do not forget to hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't, and now that I'm thinking about it, this video will definitely be out by the summer season, maybe even later on in the fall season. So if there's any new anime that you're watching, feel free to let me know, because until I finish Hunter x Hunter, I am not going to be watching a lot of seasonal stuff, unless it's something a lot of people are talking about. But let me know what you think about Shield Hero, if you agree with a lot of my opinions, if you disagree with some of my opinions. But that's it for me, and I will see you in the next video. Momentai.